Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our virtual Meet the Expert session. My name is Stephen, and I'm part of the My World of Work Live team here at Skills Development Scotland. My World of Work Live is about helping you to understand future careers and what skills they might require. So in today's session, we're going to cover a quick overview of the finance sector, have a look at some of the opportunities within the sector. I'm then going to introduce you to our expert for today, Stephen Friel from HSBC. We will also allow you to ask questions throughout. I would encourage you to get involved as much as possible, so please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen and we'll go through as many questions as we possibly can. I would just like to let you know that today's session is being recorded so that young people who could not make it today can still access the resources. So the video will be made available for everyone to watch on the My World of Work YouTube channel. That means that if you've maybe missed something or would like to hear it again, you can go back and rewatch everything that has been talked about today. At the end of the session, a feedback link will also be provided. We ask if you could spare a couple of minutes, if you could fill this out to help us improve our sessions going forward. The information provided is anonymous and no details will be provided by yourself. Also, please don't worry, everything you do ask in the questions can be anonymous as well. So just before I introduce you to today's expert, let's have a look at some information for the finance sector. So the finance sector, almost 100,000 people are employed in the industry in Scotland. Scotland is recognised as the most important UK financial centre outside London and the South East, manages over 800 billion of funds overall, and generates around 8 billion for the Scottish economy, which is more than 8% of Scottish onshore economic activity. So the finance sector of the future, again, Stephen will be able to touch on this a lot more in depth. Digital skills will be in demand as changes in technology lead to new ways of interacting with customers and analysing the market. Customer service roles will continue to be important, especially with the development of new technology like banking apps. So hopefully this lets you see that Scotland is going to need many more skilled people in the finance sector. I'm now just going to give you a quick insight into who Stephen Friel is before passing you across to Stephen himself. So Stephen is 29 years old and started in a customer-facing role, working his way up to now become the UK business manager. He credits his success to good work ethic and great people skills. Outside of work, Stephen enjoys hobbies such as tennis and football, and Stephen's been working in the finance industry for 5 years, where he's been working with HSBC. I'm now going to pass you over to Stephen, who will be able to give a much greater depth into the finance industry and his job role.
Thanks very much, Stefan. I just want to say thanks to everyone at My World of Work for having me here, for yourself and the team, and also for you guys for taking the time to come onto the session today. Really appreciate you taking the time, and for anyone who's took the time to click on the YouTube link post the event as well. Just to kind of expand on your points here, Stefan, on the industry itself. Yeah, there's 161,000 people actually employed in the industry in Scotland, which is fantastic. So obviously a massive industry, and there's around about 2,185 financial services firms based in Scotland, and that's all over the country. What I'll be talking to you about today is mostly banking, but that is just one sector within the financial services sector. You've also got different ones like asset management, you've got like the legal side, finance side, accountancy, tax, fund management. Don't worry too much if those terms are a bit alien to you. They were certainly alien to me, and when I first started in financial services when I was still at school, and I guess even now, because like I say, I've only worked in one section of the financial services sector, so don't kind of worry too much. I'll be talking about banking primarily today. So yeah, the sector obviously very big. I'm going to talk about kind of my experience, how I come in, what my thoughts were, any kind of preconceived notions I had of the industry before starting, that sort of thing as well. So yeah, a bit about myself. As Stefan said, I'm 29 years old. I don't know if that's still classed as young for yourself, but I guess within the financial services sector you kind of are. But look, people come into the the industry at like 17, 18, 19. But if I'm being totally honest, if somebody had said to me at that age, you would end up working for a bank, I would have been a bit disappointed in myself, because I didn't see it as a career of what it actually is, of being fast paced, of having, you know, so much chance for development, you know, the chance to travel, all that sort of thing. So I wish I'd researched that a bit younger. But as Stefan said, I came into the industry when I was 24. And I came in as what's known as an entry-level position. So I started in the call centre, and it was for a bank called First Direct. They're a small bank. They're owned by HSBC. You might not have heard of them, but they're well known for having fantastic customer service, and you know, it's a fantastic place to work. But my intentions were really only to work part-time. I wanted to become a tennis coach. I still play tennis to this day. Absolutely love it. But I was doing 22 hours per week. For me, I knew I had the potential to do well at school, but I didn't do particularly amazing. Probably lower than average, actually, or lower than your average. Maybe like 2 hires, maybe 2 or 3, if I'm being honest. And I always kind of felt it wasn't because I couldn't do it. It's just I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I didn't really feel like I had anything to work towards. And for me as a person, I kind of need that motivation, that sort of sense of direction. Because once I've got that, I feel like I'm not unstoppable, but I'm certainly a lot more motivated. But you know, don't let my shortcomings become your shortcomings if you don't know what you want to do. It's not to say that you can't get brilliant grades, because the brilliant grades open doors for you. I absolutely wish I'd stuck in a bit more at school, but I spent the time that I should have been studying playing, you know, football and tennis, and really only interested in PE as a subject. But so that kind of took me from, so once I left school, done a couple of jobs here and there, certainly no kind of anything worthy of a mention of a career. But once I started in financial services at 24 in the call centre, you know, when I first stepped onto the floor, with the banking floor, the buzz was just absolutely brilliant. You know, it was loud, it was fast, it was everything that you kind of think it would be when you see it in like films and trading floors and things like that. But you know, I was in the call centre and I was dealing with people's day-to-day banking inquiries. So you know, you would have people wanting to transfer money to their friends or pay bills. You would be opening accounts for people. You would be keeping an eye out for fraud as well. You know, you get a lot of fraudsters phoning up and trying to get access to people's accounts. So you've got a lot of technology that can help you with that. But you get all the training to do that as well. So you know, loads of things going on there. It was fast. You know, you're doing like sorting people's banking apps as well. So there's a lot of the digital side of it. And you can be dealing with a lot of money, you know, like I think at times, you know, you can be transferring, you know, 20, 30, 40,000 pounds right up to the well into the hundreds and thousands. You do transfer it to another department to do that, because there's, you know, a bit more security involved when you start getting, you know, upwards of in terms of monetary value. But you know, that sense of responsibility for me is what I really enjoyed. You know, if you make a mistake or someone else makes a mistake with a customer's account, they're going to let you know about it. I mean, if you think about it, if you go and try and pay for something with your card and you think you've got the money there and someone's maybe blocked your card for some reason, or, you know, moved money out of your account that they shouldn't have moved, then, you know, the knock-on effect's massive. So that was the first thing that really struck me, was first, I suppose, how friendly the people were in the great environment, because it was fast paced and you've got all the support, and that was great. But it was really the sense of responsibility that had me hooked. And from there, I moved from working part time and just kind of on the call centre floor to working in mortgages full time. And that would be the first kind of segue into talking about the industry in a bit of a broader scope, is that, you know, there's so many opportunities within financial services. So I know some industries, not a lot. Once you're in there, there's not a lot of kind of room for movement. But you know, if you're anything like me, I get bored a bit easy, if I'm being honest. You know, I need that kind of new, fresh challenge. And there's just so many departments, so many areas that you can work in within financial services. So I ended up getting into mortgages. Again, loved the responsibility, loved the buzz of, you know, a customer phoning, trying to buy their first house or wanting to buy a new house. You know, they're giving you all their outgoings, and you're making a decision based on you know, what they earn and their outgoings are and that sort of thing, based on whether they can, you know, afford this mortgage and whether you can lend on this mortgage. And again, massive amount of responsibility. Absolutely loved it. From there, I ended up working in career development. So once I think I worked in mortgages for about 1.5 years, and then an opportunity came up where you could help other people apply for jobs internally within the bank. So this is all still within First Direct, who are owned by HSBC, and that role it was a 9-month secondment, which basically means somebody was off on maternity leave or having a baby, and I would sort of step in and cover them. And I found in that role was what I really loved doing was communicating to people. I found that I could communicate in a way that people just understood. And I guess that's another thing. If you're talking about all the different opportunities, you're going to get a real chance to find out about yourself, find out what you like to do, find out what you're good at. Because let's be honest, most people like doing what they're good at. And obviously, as you start moving up in terms of kind of salary and things, it does go up as well. So it's always nice to have a bit more money in your pocket, I suppose. But yeah, so I did that for 9 months, and I feel like I did it quite well. I helped quite a lot of people move into, and again, if you're talking about sense of satisfaction, there's nothing more satisfying for me than helping someone get to where they want to be if they've got aspirations to move into a new career, or maybe even sidestep, or helping someone achieve something they maybe didn't think they could. A lot of people would come to me and maybe they weren't all that confident when it came to job applications, and so there was a lot about the technical side in terms of how to actually apply for a job, but there was a lot about the personal side and the psychological side of helping people overcome their preconceived barriers to applying for jobs. And yeah, like I say, for me that was immensely satisfying. And from there, I didn't get the option to stay. It was from there I either had to go back to mortgages because the lady was coming back to her job. So I had the chance to either go back to mortgages or go and work in financial crime, which again, look, if you're talking about things that are interesting within a bank, financial crime's right up there for me. It's essentially, making sure where a customer's money's coming from, which is really important. And over the last 10 years in the industry, that's become important, is to stop, terrorists getting access to the financial system, to stop the proceeds of crime in any sort of sense of the word, any fraudsters, criminals, drug dealers, all that sort of thing, getting access to the financial system. So there's a lot of investigatory skills there that role helped me build. Which was amazing. Financial crime's fantastic. Would recommend it to anyone. Really, really interesting. You've also got like anti-money laundering. You've got like sanctions. People trying to transfer money to countries that have got sanction, which essentially means that a government body has stopped countries doing any business with that country or that entity. Again, really, really, really interesting. So I did that for about another 1.5 years. Again, 2 years I think it was, which took me up into January just of this year. So obviously working through the pandemic and things, and we'll come to that a bit later on. But and then in January I was doing a lot of communication work for an organisation outside of HSBC but still within financial services called the Scottish Financial Enterprise, where I picked up a knack that I was sort of knew I had a bit in the background when I was doing the careers role, but that I like speaking to people. I like informing them of what's happening. I like making videos, and if any are into like TikTok and things and YouTube and editing, you might think that that's not a means to an end, but you're not ever going to make a living out of it. Believe me, if you have skills you don't know you have in terms of when it comes to like editing, video production. If anyone uses, I don't know, anything like Canva, graphic design, Adobe Illustrator, that sort of thing, if you do anything like that, there's within financial services, we're certainly within HSBC, and I know obviously within other companies, financial services, they will have these different areas as well. But we've got like the marketing team, for example, who sell promote our products and services to customers, and on our social media. You've also got social media manager. So if you're spending a lot of time in social media, like I sometimes do, you could end up making a career out of that. So all the you can make podcasts. So there's just so many things and skills that you probably don't realise you've got that you can put to use in financial services. Because as I'm starting to talk about my career here, you might start to think, well, I didn't even realise that banks offered that. And and there's so much more. You can go into the actual branch side, and you can work within a branch. You know, like I say, you could end up on the phone and, you know, speaking to customers not face to face, but over the phone and dealing with their day-to-day banking inquiries. You could work in the commercial side. You could work in the cyber security side. There's just so many. You know, your options are absolutely endless. But the reason I think you might be wondering why you know I've moved so quickly, or be wondering why I've had so many jobs in such a short period of time. And I think for me, I got like each job gave me an understanding that's helped the next job. So like on the day-to-day aspect of banking, that's helped me in every job throughout. So, you know, as much as I say I wish I'd done it differently in terms of in school, coming in at entry level was massively beneficial for me. You know, like I say, each job has made me who I am today. Certainly, I built up skills and whatnot, and it's taught me work ethic. But like the knowledge, if I went straight into communications, I wouldn't have all the operational knowledge that I've gained. So yeah, look, don't. I guess that would be my next kind of bit of advice: is don't panic. Like I say, if you don't get the grades, I know you've maybe just had your exam results, but if you've not had the grades that you want or expect, there's a lot of different routes into the industry. And once I finish talking about my current role, I will talk about that before handing over to Stefan for questions and answers. But what my current role involves is it's called an employee communications manager, as you might have seen from the original slide that Stefan had very kindly put on the screen. But essentially what it is communicating what's happening in the business to all our employees. And I think HSBC UK at the moment's got around about 30,000 employees based within the UK. We've got about 4,500 based in Scotland. So we've got sites in Edinburgh, 3 sites in Edinburgh and a branch. We've got a site in Glasgow and a branch, and a site in Hamilton and a branch in Aberdeen. So wherever you are in the country, wherever you're dialing in from today, I'm going to guess that you're not going to be too far away from an HSBC or from another company who offers financial services. But yeah, so in terms of skills, what do I do day to day? A lot of writing, whether that be sort of text, whether that be newsletters. And obviously when you write, you need to proofread, so I help others who are writing within the team out to all the people, because believe me, if you're sending out a communications to 30,000 people and you make a mistake, they will let you know. Like I say, video editing, skill again, did not know I had until about 8 months ago. Bought myself a MacBook, started video editing, got my Final Cut Pro and whatnot, and taught myself how to do it, just through YouTube. And now I kind of edit quite a lot of videos for HSBC that we send out internally. Podcasts, event management, media management, some of the things, sometimes you end up speaking to journalists. That's more of the external side, but some of the things I've been involved in have meant I've had to speak to journalists. Planning side, admin side, strategy side is really important as well, so knowing where the business are going, keeping up to date with that is probably what I do day to day now, and I absolutely love it. Like I say, the thing for me is getting to speak to our people, and that's really important. That's kind of a rough sort of outline of my career in the last 5 years. It's been absolutely brilliant. As the first slide says, what I think's got me to where I am today, it hasn't always been, like I say, it's certainly not been my grades in school, although they could have been better. It's been my attitude, I would say. My attitude's probably been my key asset. I just consider myself quite a positive person, and that's something I would say that if you can come into a working environment, and all, any of the young people I've seen that come in, regardless of routes in, whether it be apprenticeship, whether it be straight in, whether it be graduate program, work experience, young people are wanted within the financial service industry because they have a good attitude, because they're positive. It might be their first job, they're going to come in and they're going to do a good job. They want to be there, and that cannot be understated. Also very creative as well. I always find young people very, very creative, not afraid to put their head above the rest and have a go at something, whereby some people, not of it, generalising a bit, maybe aren't as comfortable doing that. So yeah, that's what I think has sort of helped me. That, and I've got a mentor. Would recommend that. Get someone who's more senior than you. My mentor's sung my praises since I've started in the business. Has built my confidence, helped me to be resilient when things aren't going so well. So massive amount of credit to him for that. I'm going to finish up by saying about the different routes into financial services. If anything has resonated with you today, you think, that actually does sound quite good. then routes in, you can do what I did and come in through working in a branch or working on the phones, call centre. So that's like an entry level role. The benefits are great regardless of what role you come in. Certainly within HSBC, I've not worked for any other companies within financial services, but I've heard of they're the same, and that you get, you know, a lot of holidays. You get a really competitive salary. You get share save, which basically means you can buy shares in HSBC for a discounted rate. You get sometimes you get a bonus as well if you and the company are doing really well. You know, healthcare, dental cover, pensions really good. So regardless of what route you come in, that's all great. One route in as well is an apprenticeship. Now, if you'd have asked me maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, would I have considered an apprenticeship in financial services? Well, I guess I maybe wouldn't have had the choice because I didn't get great grades. But for some people who have got fantastic grades, they come in through an apprenticeship. I know people that have come in straight A's and now they're absolutely flying up through the ranks because they come in through an apprenticeship. But that's another option. If you go onto apprenticeships.scot, you'll see the full sort of offering there, and there'll be lots of financial services companies there. For HSBC, certainly you come in at the same salary. But it's kind of split. You do the work that's, you know, a person who's come in the normal route would come in, and you get kind of like training, so time off from work to go through your apprenticeship. So you've also got work experience as well. If you're applying to come in the entry level or coming in through the graduate programme, and you say that you've spent 3 days with us or a week with us, understanding the business, is going to look great. So I would say explore that. And then lastly, a really popular one, if you've been to university and you've got a degree, it could be in many different disciplines. It's not just like economics or finance. You'll be considered for the graduate programme, where the salary is a bit higher than coming in at entry level, and you get so many opportunities. We offer like a global graduate programme at HSBC, you know, where you can work in, you know, New York, Sydney, Paris, Hong Kong. You can travel the world, so it's like 4 6-month placements in the graduate programme, so a really popular one as well. So yeah, I think in terms of kind of careers, I hope I've demonstrated to you that it's not just working in a branch. I hope I've demonstrated that to you, whatever skills you've got, and you will have skills, I can guarantee you, whether you think you've got them or not, there will be a fit for you within financial services. It's been a fantastic career. Couldn't recommend it highly enough. Yeah, I hope something's kind of sparked with you, and if not, that's fine too. It's not for everyone, that's fine. But certainly happy to answer any questions you've got, and I'll pass over to Stefan to take us through those questions.
Stephen, thank you. Really, really valuable insight there, and you touched on quite a lot as well, which is really, really good. One of the questions, you have touched on it quite a bit there in terms of apprenticeships, but I'm going to rephrase that just to try and get a bit more from that question as well. So in terms of apprenticeships, if a young person was interested in doing an apprenticeship in the finance industry, where would they find it, or how do they get involved?
Yeah, so apprenticeships.scot is the main website. What I would say, if you're going to apply for an apprenticeship, do a bit of homework on the company. So you'll find that on whatever company you're applying for, whether it's, you know, HSBC, First Direct, they both offer apprenticeships. So do a bit of homework, see what they do, see what they offer. It's helped me when I apply for jobs, is sort of looking ahead. But if you look on apprenticeships.scot, that'll talk you through the whole process in terms of application and preparation, that sort of thing as well.
Excellent, thank you. Another question we have there as well, Stephen, is in regards to COVID. I think it's probably a question that everybody's asking nowadays with regards to employment. And I suppose the question is, I've heard before that the COVID has sort of pushed the finance industry to where it wanted to go in terms of becoming more digital and stuff like that. So could you maybe tell us a bit more about that?
Oh, wow, that's a cracking question. Whoever's answered that, really, really good question. Yeah, do you know what? Like, I think we were already moving there. It's just accelerated it. So, for example, if you take bank branches, right? So, I would ask how many people have ever stepped foot inside a bank branch. I'm going to guess not many, or at least if you have, it's probably you know, very infrequent. So we've seen within the banking industry that branch usage has been declining for a while, not just because of COVID. So we've shut some of our branches, as a lot of a lot of banks have, and we've had to really look at how people want to interact with banks. So there is still a place for branches. For some people, for example, if you've maybe had a bereavement in the family, and you need to deal with their account, you don't really want to do that on a chat function. You want to speak to someone. Or maybe if you're like a business customer and you've got a large transaction to deal with, or you want to speak to an advisor, you need to have a branch for that. So we're looking at things like pop-up branches. We're still retaining some of our branches as well, of course, but yeah, looking at maybe like pop-up branches that we can put all around the country and communicate when they're going to be there so people can access them. Some roles as well, naturally, if you're shutting branches, will mean they're not available anymore. But where COVID's, as you say, with the digital side, as we look to kind of enhance our payment services, whether that be like a digital wallet for commercial customers, anything to do with like our applications, that's going to create roles. So as much as we lose roles in some places, we're creating roles in others, which is great, and it means people get to kind of expand their skills. So I guess from the career aspect, I've got a new job during COVID. It's meant that you can do a job based in London or Birmingham. I'm based in Birmingham, and that's helped. And I guess if you're looking at customer behaviour as well, lastly, if you're talking about COVID, people are saving money over COVID. If you can't go on a night out or you can't go on holiday, you might struggle to spend your money as well. I'm great at spending money, but you might struggle to spend your money as well as you did before. So it means people are saving money. There's less demands for loans and credit cards, so that means what's called the Bank of England base rate's impacted. It's really low just now, and in a low interest environment, banks don't make as much money from lending products. So it's changed in a number of ways, but we're just trying to support customers and support colleagues, customers as best we can. I think as everyone is, we've worked with the government to lend businesses a lot of money during COVID, because some industries like the hospitality industry, like I say about nights out and restaurants and cinemas, have really struggled if they're not getting income. So would I say that it's changed it? Yeah, of course, but I think we were kind of we had a fair idea of kind of customer behaviour, branches, that sort of thing in the past. I would say it's probably just accelerated it.
Brilliant, thank you, Stephen. Really interesting to find out, obviously, things like pop-up branches and stuff like that as well, how the industry's evolving with time and technology and things like that as well. Stephen, one of the other questions that has come in, do I have to go to university?
No, you absolutely don't. I didn't go to university. If you want to do the graduate programme, you do, because you need to be a graduate of university. But it doesn't mean that you can't rise above the level that somebody who's been to university's been. There's people below, I don't want to say below me, but there's people who are who haven't applied for any other jobs that are quite content working maybe as like a team manager or on the phones, that have got degrees, and they don't want to move, and that's fine, because the degree that is meant that maybe they're waiting for an opportunity to come up somewhere else. But it doesn't, if you go for a job and you've not got a degree and someone else has got a degree, it's obviously a factor. It helps if you've got a degree, but it's not going to be the deciding factor on whether you get that job. As far as getting into the industry, as I say, with apprenticeships, you don't need a degree for that. Entry level, you don't need a degree for that. So no, you absolutely don't. But if you want to work on the graduate programme and come in that route, then you do. But for the vast majority of roles, you don't. No.
Thank you, Stephen. I know one of the other questions that has come in here as well, and again, you have touched on this in terms of creativity. You've mentioned things like timekeeping and good work ethic and that, but what skills would you recommend a young person focuses on or improves on to work in the finance industry?
That's again, great question. I'll talk about subjects as well, Stefan, as I know that's quite a common one. People say I need to take English and maths and to work in the bank. Look, if you go and work in maybe marketing, for example, social media, you're not working with numbers. They're not going to ask you for a maths qualification or a maths degree. So it really depends. There's basically even within the bank, we've got a personal trainer who comes in and trains us and if for example you work in the call centre, we've got a small gym, they come in and train. There's routes in that way as well. I wouldn't say there's any subjects that you could take that will hinder your chances for for coming in, all the subjects will, I'm assuming that you've maybe got, some sort of idea of the direction that you want to go in. So, if you want to work in finance, I'm not going to tell you don't need maths, because you do. If you want to work in communications, English helps. I'm not going to say it doesn't. If you want to work in the MI team and the data team, if you've done computing, it's going to stand you in good stead. Will it stop you? No. I didn't do anything to do with video editing, and here I am editing videos, every couple of weeks. I taught myself how to do it. You can build on the skills, but in terms of actual skills as a person, the ones I've mentioned in terms of having a good work ethic help, being positive, having a growth-based mindset. Integrity is a big one as well. You're working with massive amounts of money, so if you show that you can be trusted, that helps when you're moving up. If you do what you say you're going to do. But as you've said, Stefan, the world's changing. We're getting competition coming in all the time from challengers banks. If you're a good innovator and you've got ideas, we always listen to ideas. There's countless forums where you can speak to the CEO directly. Within HSBC, we've got a forum once every month where if you've got an idea, you put it to him, and if he likes it, he'll take it on board. So if you can innovate, then that helps as well. And customer service is always a good one if you're dealing with customers. Banks are looked at to sort of set the standard, I would say, in some regards. Certainly First Direct have set the standards. The amount of awards they've won in customer service are frightening. If you can speak to customers in a mature way and show empathy where it's needed, go over and above where it's needed, that's always going to stand you in good stead as well.
Brilliant. And I think one of the good things there, Stephen, as well, all those skills that you've mentioned are transferable. So again, they can be transferred from different roles within the industry or even into different sectors as well, which is really, really positive as well. Stephen, we've got a couple more questions here just before we finish up. Again, you've touched quite a lot on qualifications and that, but you've mentioned as well how they're not really the be all and end all in terms of qualifications. If I was a young person, what type of qualifications would help me to get my foot in the door in the industry?
Brilliant question. Yeah, look, I would hate for the message to be like, don't get qualifications. Like if I could have went back and knew that I was going to work in a bank, I don't doubt I would have worked a lot harder in school. And I've had to work so much harder, getting the qualifications I've needed, within the bank to do certain things, because I didn't kind of get my head down in school. So please, try your best to get the best qualifications you can. But the apprenticeships is a great one. First of all, providing financial services, we take you through that qualification if you come in the entry level route. Again, depends on the area you want to work in. There's customer services qualifications that you can do. So if you want to work in sort of either face to face, or if you want to work over the telephone and speak to customers, they help. If you want to work in mortgages, if you can get your mortgage qualifications before you come in, that stands you in great stead. So if you become a mortgage advisor, I think they used to be called what was called CF1 and CF6. And this basically goes like CF, and then it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you want to become like a financial advisor and advise people on how to manage their money and how they should invest or spend, I suppose. I'm not a financial advisor, so I don't know the exact ins and outs. But if you want to become a financial advisor, those things help. If you want to become a mortgage advisor, you need the first and the last one. Any sort of if you want to come in and do coding, for example, if you're a computer programmer, if you want to run our websites and things, any qualifications in relation to coding help massively. Financial crime, so for example, if you want to go and do investigatory work and figure out what criminals are operating within financial services, there's I think it's called ACAMS, ACAMS is kind of like the industry sort of leader there. Financial crime's really interesting one, by the way. Super interesting. You're essentially informing the bank that someone's operating their account illegally, or you think they are. You can obviously it goes for further investigation, but super rewarding as well. So a few qualifications there, but if you go on the HSBC website and go into careers, or the First Direct website, or any bank or financial services company and go into careers, you'll get a fair idea of what they're looking for.
Excellent. I think obviously all those extracurricular things as well do help with roles. They show that initiative, as you had said earlier, and they show you actually having a good work ethic, trying to improve all the time. Stephen, again, another question that has come in now. This can be both on a personal level or in the organization, but have you got any people that would inspire you on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mentioned, that's what I touched on before, Stefan, that I've got a mentor. His name's Nick, and he's been mentoring me, I think, since about 2017, so when I was about 2 years in the bank. And like he absolutely inspires me most. He's quite a senior figure within HSBC in Scotland, but just his values are kind of like aligned to mine. So when I asked him to become my mentor, it was because I liked how he spoke to people. He didn't speak to anyone below him as if that they were below him. He, again, work ethic, I keep saying it, and there was like, I was really sort of taken aback by the amount of time he puts in into his job, not because he has to. And I know there's, one of the questions you get commonly asked about, work-life balance, and I'll come on to that in a second. But he works really hard. He's involved in a lot of different things. He helps people get jobs in the bank, which I like. I think you always have to give back and things. Really important. So he inspires me as a person, where he's got to just kind of who he is as a person. I kind of try and model myself on him. Externally, really just anybody who's like a professional athlete. I'm really into my sport. They're always looking for the kind of 0.5% to get better. And I think if you can do that as well, like if you've kind of know where you want to go and you're kind of happy to go above and beyond in your job, and want to do not just a good job, because a good job now is probably just like an average job. People kind of expect at times, and whether that be customers, whether that be, I mean, maybe that's just myself. I expect a bit more from myself, but yeah, anyone kind of within the sporting field, I would say, is probably an inspiration to me as well. And just to go back and talk, you might be wondering about banks or financial services companies having a reputation for working long hours. You get a contract and you have absolutely no obligation to work beyond that. Mine's is a 9 to 5 contract, and I get an hour lunch every day, so I work 35 hours a week, 40 hours contracted, but I get my 5 hours a week lunch. If I'm on early or late, you can see, because we're all working remotely, I'm on Microsoft Teams. It tells my boss if I'm online, and she is very quick to say, why are you online? You're not meant to be online. Do you need to be online? That sort of thing. If you want to do more hours, you can, but you're certainly not obligated to. But I've found, because I've put in a couple of extra hours here and there every week, it stood me in good stead, getting those qualifications, going spending time with other departments that I maybe want to work in the future, working on my CV, working on making my project, whatever I'm working on at the time, as best as it can be. But you absolutely don't have to do it. It's just something I want to do, because I kind of want to keep trying to progress.
Brilliant. And Stephen, I'm going to finish up with one final question. Question that gets asked pretty much in every session, really. Now, I'm not looking for any specifics in terms of like salaries and that, but could you give the young audience an idea really of what type of salaries you could typically earn?
Yes. Tough to say, Stefan, and just because the industry and the bank is just so broad. Like I say, we've got about 30,000 people. So in the UK, if you're coming in at entry level, I'll give you a figure for this, because you can find it on the website. You go on the First Direct website or the HSBC website. I think it'll tell you the salary, but I know, because I come in entry level through First Direct. It's between, so you start off at 18,200 it is. Now that's just entry level, and it goes up based on once you become fully skilled in things, up to about, I think it's 21,000. People that have been there a while, you get pay rises based on like inflation as well. You can sometimes get a pay rise based on performance. Like some people will be on a different wage to some other people. There's no set bandings. I think people think that every job is, or every grade within the bank has got a set amount that you need to come in on, and there's just too many factors. Like, for example, I work in Birmingham, so like I've got quite a long commute. If you had to pay me the same salary as when I worked in Edinburgh in my financial crime role, then it would be tough for me to. I might still do it because I wanted to progress, but I think it's like only fair. You can ask the question. They might say no, but HSBC really look after their people. Like I would definitely say it's like certainly the role I'm in. It's very competitive. I'm not going to give a figure because I don't think that's fair. Because there's other factors at play. But look, if you come into a role and you think that you're going above and beyond, you've done you've done extra qualifications, you can ask for a pay rise if you don't think you're on enough. And there's I think Glassdoor's maybe like a website you can use to get a rough idea, but I would say entry level around about the sort of 18 to 20,000 for first direct. And then you've got graduate programs where you come in at a bit more as well. I don't know exactly how much because I didn't come in, but like, I mean, it's competitive is what I'll say. It's very strong, and all the other benefits are great as well, as I spoke about earlier.
Stephen, thank you. That's been absolutely amazing. So just to let you know, watching today, you can find out more about careers at www.myworldofwork.co.uk. You'll find lots of information there to help you make choices about your career. And if you need some further inspiration on what to do as well, it's a good starting point. There are also tools on there that will help you to understand your strengths and explore things that you may be good at in the future as well. So a really, really good starting point. If you want to learn more about apprenticeships, Stephen had touched on it earlier on apprenticeships.scot. And for information on digital careers, this might be like digital finance roles, you could check out digitalworld.net. You can also speak to your school careers advisor, as they will have much more information and guidance to help support you on your career journey. Well, that's us come to the end of the session today. First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to say a huge thank you to Stephen from HSBC for taking the time to join us today and for providing such a valuable insight and answering as many questions there about the role and the sector. I personally found it really, really interesting, and I hope that you have as well. So thank you to everyone who has taken the time to join us today. As mentioned at the beginning, the session has been recorded, so you can view it as many times as you want at a later date and have a look at the list of future sessions that are coming up over the coming months as well. Finally, thank you to everyone for joining the session today. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.